All right, everyone. Thank you for coming to our webinar. We're going to get started here. My name is Chelsea, and I'm part of the Backyard Chicken Caucus. And I have with me Jodi Litchfield from Mother Clucker's Wellness and Spa. So a little bit about Jodi. Mother Clucker Mobile Chicken Wellness and Spa was created in 2020 by husband and wife team Jodi and Jeff Litchfield. Quickly realizing there were many different needs for the ever-growing backyard flock community that weren't able to be met, they began developing and haven't looked back. With a combined lifetime of experience, both large and small-scale flocks, they bring care to every coop, peeps, and clucker as if it were their own. Mrs. Clucker, Jodi, started her degree program in 2021 for avian and poultry sciences, with the goal to bring accessible education and guidance to flockers of all levels. Above and beyond, there are many valuable services from deep cleans to external pest management. They have worked hard to develop a line of wellness products made from locally sourced and homegrown herbal ingredients. From educational workshops to deep scrub down of your coop, they do it all with passion to help make every flocker's journey the best it can be. And without further ado, Jodi, take it away.
Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to have you guys here. I'm super excited to do this very first webinar with the Baltimore Backyard Chicken Caucus. It's fantastic what they've achieved. We just want to give a big shout out to them. Everybody in Baltimore County that's here, that yay, you guys can go and get all of the paperwork you need for your chickens. So we're super excited for that. So we're going to jump right in and so hi, little peeper. So we're going to jump right in. Chelsea, you can go to the next slide for me. So the big one, everybody's going to stop. Whoa, wait a minute. I know we're super excited to go get our first teeny tiny baby peeps, but you want to make sure that you do all of your research first. You want to make sure you have your brooder set up. You want to make sure you've got your feed, your first aid kits, all the information that you get from us and other people around you, knowing what to buy. You know, there's a lot. So we're going to go through all of this. And I know some of you might already have your chicks, and there'll be a lot of information that you'll have to go forward with it now. And some of you who are just going to go and get them. So this will cover kind of everything for everybody who still has chicks inside even. All right, so let's go on to our first subject here. So your proper setup. Now, there's been a lot of do-it-yourself kind of brooders, which is great. You just want to make sure that you do it yourself the right way. You can go and buy a lot of brooders, and honestly, they are pretty expensive, and there's no reason why you can't just build one and be creative with what you have. So to start off with, when you're picking your space for your brooder, a lot of people will say, oh, it'll be super fun to have them inside your home. That can happen, but we'll get into why you want to make sure and choose that space very carefully. They get a lot, they're pretty smelly and pretty dusty, so we'll get into that. But for the brooder itself, you want to have enough space for them to grow. So you know, your small gray tote isn't going to last much longer. The brooder that you see in the picture next to this slide is the size that you're going to want to have. Something like this can actually fit up to 10. It's about either a 4x, I would say like a 3x8 or a 4x6 space is really good to kind of start off as baby chicks and allow them to grow into pullets before they go outside to the coop. So with that in mind, when you're picking your space for your brooder, in the middle of your dining room is not the best spot. It's going to take up a lot of space. And so in that brooder, you're going to want to pick bedding. Now, towels and things like that are not ideal. They will hold on to bacteria versus absorb, where you can change out weekly, that kind of thing. So you want to stick to pine chips. Hemp bedding is also really good. It's a little more expensive, which is something you maybe want to wait and hold on to until they're out into the coop. For your chicks, you're going to be changing their bedding quite often. The chips are, you know, they're pretty inexpensive. You can get them at Tractor Supply and very absorbent. So you're going to want to make sure and do that. The puddle pads for puppies, those can work in the first 2 or 3 days, but you will find that the same thing, once they hit their absorbency level, they're just going to be a huge mess, and they do hold on for bacteria and everything as well. So again, they're great in the beginning, but your best option is to have an enclosed space where you can have pine chips that you clean once a week. Now your heat source. This one is a big one. It's the heat lamp versus the heat plate debate. This goes back to, the iPhone is better than the Samsung. So your heat source, now I personally have used heat lamps myself in a different way. This picture that you have here with this heat lamp, when you're working in a space like this with chicks and not outside where they can knock the heat lamp over, it can be acceptable. Just to keep in mind that it is still highly dangerous to have in your home. If it does get knocked over by kids, dogs, anything like that, they are still quite, there's dangers involved in that. Your heat plates are a really great option. I call them mother hen plates because they get underneath them, just like a mama hen. So those, in your little packet, I do have samples of really good ones. And they're great because as you need to reduce the heat, you can raise them up, which is really great. They're safe. The only problem with those is that if you don't provide them with an ambient heat, they will get cold when they come out to eat. If they are too cold, they'll slowly not come out to eat and drink as much as they should be, which will lead you into a lot of health problems. So if you're going with a heat plate, you need to make sure that the ambient heat of the room is at a proper temperature and that everything is enclosed so you don't have a lot of drafts. We want to keep those babies nice and warm until they're ready to go outside and they're fully feathered, and then they can keep their own heat in. Have a thermometer to monitor this heat. There's again, there's a temperature chart. So from the first week, they need 95 degrees, and then you drop down 5 degrees from that. So it's really simple to make sure that your heating is proper. That's probably the biggest thing you need to make sure of. A lot of people will use the mesh dog cages, or I don't know, they're almost like a pet playpen or even a playpen. That mesh isn't keeping the heat in very well. So if you do use one of those, you need to make sure and put some cardboard or something like that around it to help maintain the heat inside. And again, make sure you have your thermometer. You can check under the heat plate, under the heat lamp, and in their ambient temperature around their food. This is very important. The heat is the biggest cause for loss of your flocks. You want to make sure you have all that way before you get all your chicks and you have it all set up. Again, beware of your drafts. Don't put your brooder next to a garage door that's going to be constantly opening. That's inconsistent heat. That's also going to be a problem for you. So you want to make sure that if you're going to have it in your house, in the basement's a good spot. The garage is good, just maybe at the back, not right at the front where the door will be opening a lot. And just keep an eye on those drafts. That's the big thing. We can't let them get too cold. Your feeders and water dishes. Make sure you go out and actually invest in a proper chick feeder and chick water dish. Babies can drown. So if you have a water dish that's too big, or if you don't have an option, you want to put some smooth pebbles in it so that they can't fall in, because they will fall in. They're still learning their feet just like our own babies do. So you want to make sure that you have those proper setups. Have them lifted a little bit. I used, in the beginning, I just used a Tupperware container. You can put that on top, and then as they grow, you can put it on a brick. But in the beginning, when they're really tiny, just make sure that you have those proper feeders meant for chicks. They're relatively inexpensive at most farm stores. The bottles, the jugs, the bowls, that kind of thing, not ideal. So you want to make sure you have that stuff before you even pick your chicks up. If you're having them mailed even, because they're going to need that food and that water right away. And setting up your brooder in a safe place in your home. This is a big one. You don't want them to be in a high stress area. High stress causes a multitude of different health issues, one of them being pasty butt, which we'll get into a little bit later. But you want to keep them from a lot of screaming noise. They need that time to kind of decompress from being shipped or moved or driven over. You also want to make sure that they're away from young children and other pets. So although that you might think and hope that your puppy or your dog is chicken friendly because they're staring at them and watching them, that's not always a good thing. Prey drive and that can be an issue. So you want to make sure that these babies are going to grow up somewhere safe, and you can try introductions later and see how things go. Young children, the biggest risk is if they reach in and they grab one, just squeeze the squeeze that can come too hard can crush their lungs and stuff like that. So you want to make sure that It's in a place that you can keep away from the young children, or they're always supervised. The ultimate is to just keep it away from everybody. And when it's time to have a little chicky playtime, you can come in and you can supervise with the kids, and you can test out your dogs around them well leashed in proper training situation. And there's not a lot of loud, TV, loud running around, kids running around, all that kind of stuff. You want to keep that away from them. And trust me, the smell, you're going to want to do that anyways. So that is the proper setup. The biggest part of that I can say is just get your spaces in order. Make sure you have your heat source proper, and always make sure you've got that thermometer before you get your babies, because it only takes a matter of 12 hours for them to go from hot to cold, and that'll be a loss. So make sure you got all that set up beforehand. What to expect? The smell. We talked about the smell. And I do say, did I mention the smell? When your chicks are growing, they have this special kind of poop called cecal. So the cecal poop is really dark. It's really sticky. It's almost like really dark chocolate pudding. Sorry for the visual, but it is nasty stuff. It smells of something awful, and they have it at least 1 or 2 times a day and slowly dropping down week by week. And that smell will stick around no matter how many times you clean that coop. They're going to do it all over again. One tiny chicken cecal poop can smell your whole room. So you want to really make sure that you put these in a place where they're chickens. They're still farm animals, even though they are beloved pets. They do have a smell. So you want to make sure and be very aware of that when you choose your space to brood them. Also, their dander. When people talk about how much dust they have, that's actually the dander on them. It's not dirt from outside. That is shed skin. That's dander. And it is extremely hazardous to your lungs in large quantities. There's a picture there. That's actually a picture of a coop that I did. Those are my feet. And I wear a full respirator, and that's dealing with a full-size flock of 10 hens. And it gives you an idea of the fine part. It's almost like a talcum powder versus what we see on our head when we get dander. Because of its makeup and its material, it gets into our lungs, and you can get something called farmer's lung. And it is a cross between asthma, bronchitis, and almost like a pneumonia. The fluid builds up. So when you're putting them in your house, you need to be very aware that that is not something you can stop or prevent or even reduce. It's just part of what they do naturally. So if you have a shed outside or something like that, it's a really good option to not have them in your home, where, especially if you've got young children, very, very bad for the lungs. So it's not something we can't deal with outside, but living in your home, having them in your living room or on your dining room table, not a good option. So that is something we find a lot of new flockers don't realize, that dust is dander and how excessive it can be, especially while they're growing new feathers. So you want to make sure that you're fully aware of that. In the comfort of their flock, again, that's being, in the quietness, not having a high stress situation where you can regulate their temperatures. They are naturally aware of predators. So having a dog staring at them all the time is actually very unnerving for them, because they feel that's a predator. So imagine if you had something scary staring at you all the time, and that anxiety. Birds are the same way. They go through shock just like anything else. So keeping them away from that. Clean the litter, once a week. It's a personal choice. You can clean it as often as you want, but once a week, while they're just teeny tiny, is plenty. And then as they get older, you'll find you're pretty much just going to be ready for eviction day. So, but keeping a clean litter will help keep with a lot of health issues down. It allows you to keep assessing your flock. You want to take a look at their poop often. You want to see what's going on there. It's not common for little birds to get worms because they're not outside yet, but if you have them around other animals, that is a possibility. So keeping an eye on their poops as they're little is really good. And again, safety from other pets and young children. So before you go and pick up your chicks, we just want you to make sure that you really take a look at all of this. Take a look at your home, take a look at your garage, sheds that you can turn into, kind of a temporary brooding space, or you can even build a little brooding space outside if you plan to do this more often. So really, it saves you a lot of headache after 4 weeks of having them inside and everyone's coughing or the smell is atrocious and you can't, you're just like, I didn't know about this. That's what we want to save you from. And it's better for everybody. So if you have any questions about that, we're going to do some questions at the end. If you have any specific questions about your brooder setup, what you already have, you can definitely feel free to send an email as well with pictures. But if you just have some, common questions, we'll grab those at the end. Okay. So now you're on your way. You're ready. You're ready to go and you want to pick up those little teeny tiny chicks. And you're super excited. And they have all kinds of cool colors. They have cool eggs that they'll lay, some blue, some green, some pink, some speckled brown. I mean, it's the egg rainbow is an endless one. But when you get there, there's going to be labels on these little chicks. And you want to make sure that you understand them because of the risk of getting a rooster. A lot of backyard families can't have roosters for obvious reasons. Having a rooster that you're not, that you shouldn't have can cause you to have people come in and saying, you got to get rid of all your birds, so you really want to make sure that you have a plan for in the case that you get a rooster. Excuse me. Even if you select, so we've got straight run. Straight run is exactly that. They don't sex them. It's a mix. You can end up with all roosters, all hens, 50-50, 40-60. You're taking your chances with straight run. It just means they all hatched and they threw them all in the bin and off to the store they go. So if you can't have roosters, definitely stay away from the straight run. And I know it might be hard, even if they've got some like really cool breeds, shop around. There's a lot of your local hatcheries are going to have them. So, if you can't risk that rooster, definitely stay away from them. Pullets, those are sexed female chicks. So they come to the store sexed. You still have a chance, a smaller chance, but there's still a chance that you could get a rooster out of that. It could be anything from the store employees, showing everyone chicks and then putting them back in the wrong bin. An improper sex job from the hatchery. They can be a little sneaky sometimes. I mean, silkies, you can't sex until they either crow or lay an egg, or DNA testing, which most hatcheries won't do that. It's quite expensive. So that is your best bet, especially from your local hatcheries who do take a lot of time to learn how to sex different ways. There's vent sexing and there is wing sexing. Vent sexing works really, really well, but it's one of those lessons learned that it takes time to learn that one. And also if you go with your local hatcheries, you have a better chance of adding a return into your rooster plan, where you can call them up and if they said these are hens, you end up with a rooster. A lot of times they'll take them back. A good hatchery will take it back for you, or exchange for another hen, that sort of thing. So even then, just remember that you've got to make sure and stay away from straight run. If you don't care and you can have roosters, great. But remember, you might end up with 5 roosters and only 2 hens. So you really got to take your chances and have your plan. It's really hard to rehome roos in a lot of counties, a lot of states, because almost nowhere except for agricultural can have them. So you need to come up with that plan, and you need to know if you're okay with sending them with somebody who is going to process them, which is, a real thing you need to be comfortable about talking about, or if you're going to work hard to try and rehome them. Crow collars do not work. They might maybe sort of sometimes make it a little less of a crow, but it is not good for the bird, and they really don't work. So what's it's kind of like, why would we do that if it's not going to work very well? And then meat birds. So this one has come up several times with a few clients that we've had, where they picked a Cornish and didn't know that a Cornish cross, a Cornish, or a broiler is actually a meat bird. So unless you plan on using these birds for that purpose, where you process them, then you need to return them right away if you got them by accident, or you need to just make sure that you double check them. The reason is they are breeds that grow very rapidly. So within 8 to 12 weeks, they're ready to be processed, which means, it's time for dinner. And a lot of people have a hard time with that. And aren't into it to raise them for that. Like myself, I do it for the eggs. My family in the past has done it for food and eggs, you know, so it's just something that's very sad when you don't know and you end up with, you know, 3 or 4 meat birds that you didn't realize that's what they're for. And around the 8 to 12 week mark, they start failing under the weight of their own body. So they are strictly for meat processing. So 8 to 12 weeks, they're good. You know, you can even have them where they'll break a leg. They won't be able to stand up. They get very sick. It's just not good. If you want a meat bird to live a full life, it's a lot of work for feeding. You have to restrict their feed. You have to have them in special nesting boxes, special coops, that sort of thing. That's not what they're meant for. It's terrible for them after that time. So please make sure that you really look at the labels, ask questions. If you can find someone in the store that knows. There's always, if you go into Tractor Supply, for example, there's always somebody who will know. Just keep, looking for that person, and just make sure that you understand what a Cornish cross, a broiler, or a Cornish. Just know that that's what those are. So we don't want those unless that's what you're going to do, and that's a whole nother thing. That's a whole nother webinar right there. All right, so let's go on to the next one. Same thing with that. If you have any questions about breeds or anything, we can definitely check those on the end. Excuse me. So most common ailments. I feel like there might be quite a few of you here that, sorry, okay, I think that this is a big one because so many things can happen, but a lot of it is very preventable. So we mentioned pasty butt earlier. That is extremely common with improper temperatures, inconsistent temperatures, overheating, that sort of thing, and stress. So that picture that you see next to it here is a classic case of pasty butt. And the biggest thing with that is you need to clean it up right away. Do not pull it. So what it is that the fecal matter becomes very, very sticky and dense and thick and full of mucus. And the mucus is just very sticky. Just to get a little bit scientific on it, the mucus, it sticks to their skin, their feathers, and it's all coming and it keeps backing up and backing up and backing up. So if you were to pull on that, you can actually cause a vental prolapse, which is very painful, very dangerous. And at that size of a chick, they don't often survive something like that. You basically pull everything out, and we don't want that. So you never want to pull on it. You need to soak them in nice warm water. You can use a Q-tip, a little cotton ball. You need to get that fecal matter nice and soft so you can slowly start wiping it away, being very gentle, not to pull. It's painful for them if you start plucking those feathers out. Super high stress situation too, which you don't want. So, and this will all be in the packet too at the end. I've got a great guide that we're going to email to everyone who registered and who joined. That's going to have kind of a step-by-step process on the pasty butt and how to do it. So you just want to make sure prevention is your best option, and prevention for pasty butt comes down to your temperatures and your stress levels. So, I mean, we've already said it in the first few minutes how important temperatures are. So you want to make sure that you really keep a thermometer going, watch everybody, and you want to do a check. I do daily checks on my chicks, and you don't have to spend a lot of time. You just they run around. It'll only take you a few minutes to check their bottoms, and make sure and you just handle it right away. You can give them a little blow dry after. Low speed, I'll tell you right now, high speed, and you're going to have a rolling ball or rolling bowling ball of a chicken, a baby chick. So just put it on low. They actually fall asleep. They love it. Love, love, love it. Even my adult girls and all our clients, adults, I tell them, give them a blow dry after you give them a soaking, and they love it. And I mean, who doesn't want to take a few pictures of you giving a nice, wonderful blowout to your chicks, right? So just make sure you take care of it right away. Another thing for pasty butt that you want to make sure is that you have a proper feed for them. You want a good, well-rounded chick feed, and we're going to get into medicated versus non-medicated on the next one. So make sure their feed is good. You want to make sure they have the vitamins in the water, alternating between vitamin water and fresh water, because they do need just fresh water as well. So, you know, one day fresh, one day treated. And that's why when you fill up your water, you don't need to go over full. I do halfway on the little feeders, because you're going to be changing it out the next day. Especially if they're, no matter what you do, they keep getting chips in it, you change it out quite often, or you have to get the chips out of it. But try and elevate it a little bit to prevent that. Dehydration. So all of these things can, or sorry, the pecking injuries, family pet problems, young children, and dehydration are all things that can cause pasty butt. And so you want to kind of take this all in as one, or looking for solutions for that. Do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have this? If you're seeing a lot of chicks get it, one or two, it's okay. You just deal with it when it comes. Sometimes there may be the little more anxious chicks. They might have had a really stressful drive over, or if you got them shipped, it might have been really, you know, really stressful there. So just keep an eye on that. Malnourishment, this is where we were talking about if your ambient temperature isn't right. So under the brooding plate might be 95 degrees, but it's only 70 degrees, you know, over on the other side of the pen where their food is. They're not going to spend as much time feeding and drinking as they should. So that's where you get malnourishment and dehydration. Very quick decline in your chicks if you see that. So if you've got chicks dropping all, you know, this way, that way, I've seen people say, I just lost 3 chicks in a day, 2 days. What do I do? A lot of these are reasons why, and only 2 of them are not preventable. So the heat, again, it comes down to keeping your temps, make them super comfortable. Spread out is happy, clustered is not happy. So there's a chart for that as well in your booklet after. So that, again, pasty butt and loss of chicks is malnourishment, dehydration. Overheating, you don't want to cook those little guys, so you want to watch your temps again. You got to make sure you don't want anything over 95, and as they get older, you need to drop that down by 5 degrees every week. Failure to thrive is just really what we call, we don't know. It's one of those things that happens in any livestock, any wild animal, even kittens and puppies. They just weren't strong when they were born. Maybe they had a hard hatch. Maybe they were shrink wrapped, which is when the membrane shrinks because there's no humidity, because they took too long to really to hatch out. So they get shrink wrapped. So if they survive that, it can be all kinds of things, just genetics. So that one is kind of, you know, it happens a lot. You know, we always say like 1 out of 5, 1 out of 10 kind of thing, or sorry, 1 out of 5, 3 out of 10. It's not anything we can prevent. And that also goes with sudden chick death. That we call a super healthy chick who's running around, doing everything normal, peeping, playing, having fun, and then that's it, is most often either a liver failure or a heart attack. Very common in chicks. It's amazing that they're so resilient, but at the same time, they can be very, very non-resilient. So it's kind of funny that way, but that often is not anything that you're doing wrong, and it's easy to kind of tell when that sort of stuff happens. It's how, you know, the way you found them. Were they laying like this? Were they laying with their head down? Were they on their back, their side? That actually tells us a lot about what they passed from. So again, that kind of thing, the best thing to do is if you do have a chick that hasn't made it, reach out to somebody like myself. If you have an avian vet that knows poultry, that's a big thing. You know, it's good to find an avian vet that actually knows poultry, because poultry and pigeons, not the same. Poultry and parrots, not the same. So you want to really make sure that you find, if you do have one locally, reach out to them, tell them how you found them, take note of that, because it can save the rest of your flock, or it can just let you know that it was an unfortunate failure to thrive. You know, it gives you peace of mind. Pecking injuries is a big one. And this comes down to, if you don't have the proper brooder size, like we were talking earlier, then you're going to have pecking. You're going to have fighting. Chickens need space to be able to get away from each other. You know, keeping the food stocked, that sort of thing. As soon as they're bored, they start to peck. When they get to a certain age, you can put little roosting bars in there for them to jump on. You'll find they'll start jumping up on their brooder plates. But if you don't give them the space that they need, they will peck each other, and it can go from 0 to 60 super fast. So watch your chicks, watch what they're doing. If you're seeing pecking, take a look at your brooder space. Is it big enough? Maybe we need to upgrade it. They need something bigger. Is their food getting emptied at the on the day? Things like that. So, I call them boredom busters. Make sure that they're not bored. They're going to start to dust bath and do scratching on their own. But in the beginning, you can get a lot of fights, and they can survive it. It might look bad, but it's definitely survivable. And that'll be part of your first aid kit that we're going to talk about. Drowning, that's when I was talking about the proper chick waters and feeders. And if you have a bigger water can, then make sure and put those smooth pebbles in there so they can drink. But if they stand in it, they're not going to get stuck in there and they're going to tip over, that sort of thing. We've seen far too many chicks lost to drowning, and it's a simple, very simple fix. Family pet. So that's oh, my puppy, my dog was watching them so closely, and overnight something happened and puppy got in there, and they're not watching them closely because they want to play and they're interested. You got to be aware of your animal's prey drive, and keeping your brooder safe from them. And that's again with the placement, like we talked about before. Same thing with young children. The 5-year-old reached in, grabbed a chick. She's just grabbing a fluffy chick, and she knows that she can do that, but they got it, maybe she squished a little too hard, that kind of thing. So easily avoidable unfortunate situations, and just going into it with that mindset of safety for everybody and understanding that this is a whole new thing, not just for you, but for your family pets, your kids. So just really take a quick look before you start getting set up on how you can make sure that stuff's prevented, because nobody wants that. We want the journey to be awesome from the start. There will be some learning curves, but when it's easy to avoid or to prevent, then let's do that. All right, we can go to the next one here. Yes, so just say no. So this is the nutrition. I like this one because it is so cute to watch them chase each other with a little piece of, I'd like blueberries. Mine love blueberries. If I throw one in there and only one, it's like the biggest race you've ever seen. Who's going to get the blueberry? And then they chase each other. But as chicks, this is not, as cute as it is, it's not ideal. They are very specific. So if they were to be raised, and I've done this before where I've done what's called non-intervene, I'm sorry, I can't remember what the last word is, but where you basically do not intervene in any way. Mom hatches the chick, mom raises the chick, and you have very little contact, and it happens on their own. It's actually a beautiful thing to watch. The first few days, they don't leave the coop. Then when they leave the coop, they're taught to eat grit, and they're taught to eat just the protein. As if they were in the wild, they'd eat the protein and the bugs and stuff. They aren't taught to eat greens yet. And witnessing this and watching it, it was really, really interesting to see that in action. So as a young chick, you don't need to be giving them carrots and lettuce and all these, it sounds fun and it's super cute, but it's not good for them. They don't have the digestive acids that they need yet in their crop to break that stuff down. That has to come as they grow. And as like they would if they're raised by mom, she will tell them when to start. She will show them when to start eating greens by growing grass. Until then, she tells them they don't eat the grass. They don't eat the greens. They eat the dirt for grit and the teeny tiny little bugs. So really try to avoid that. Scrambled eggs are okay. Now, you don't want to give your young chicks raw egg yolk unless it's for when you're attempting to save a failure to thrive. So if they're really down, because they eat the yolk absorbed, just absorbed. So it's not dangerous for them, but feeding raw eggs to them as they get older can create a habit of wanting to crack eggs open and eat them. That's not good. We don't want that. So scrambled eggs are really good. It's a super good protein boost. It's got a lot of the amino acids and the omegas that they need. So, once a week at maybe the 2-week mark, you can give them a little scrambled egg. And it's really fun to watch them get all crazy in that. They love it. So save the rest of the treats for when they get outside. It's just the good idea to have a rule of no treats to the coop other than scrambled eggs. So medicated and non-medicated feed. This one has a great misconception that medicated feed means antibiotics or any kind of different medications that, it's not that kind of medicated feed. All medicated feed is that it contains what's called amprolium, and amprolium fights against coccidia, which is in turn coccidiosis. And again, this is going to be in your information. I always recommend non-medicated feed. Amprolium is very hard on the nutrient system, so absorption of nutrients is blocked when amprolium is given. So it's kind of one of those things that we've recently learned that chicks don't necessarily need it. I've had to have a few debates on it, non-medicated versus medicated. Of course, it's a personal preference, but it's not protecting them against anything except for coccidiosis. So it's not a special magic feed that's going to make them super chicks by any means. And in some cases, it can actually hinder them, especially if you already have a little weak one or whatnot. So that's the only difference. And you can make that choice on your own. It's definitely, if you're raising chicks outside naturally, if you have a broody hen raising them, it can be a good idea, but remember that mom is also getting that, and she's already depleted of nutrients because she spent 21 days sitting on eggs. So it's kind of a back and forth, but in my personal opinion, and with the education, the non-medicated feed is more than sufficient, if not a safer choice, unless you have evidence of coccidiosis. Then you can switch to the medicated feed instead of giving them a straight amprolium powder, because they're pretty young for the amprolium powder. Gotta be really careful with that. So that's it. The medicated feed's nothing special. There's no antibiotics or anything like that in it. Which also tells you too that don't be afraid to make that choice if you want. It's not like you're giving them a whole bunch of medicines. It's just the one. And you can read the bags. It doesn't matter what brand. It's all the same thing. It's simply just amprolium, and it's meant for battling or preventing coccidiosis in a very young age. I've never used it. I've used the amprolium as adults, and it's rare for adults to get coccidiosis. It seems to be spoken of a lot more, but it is more common in young pullets. But I have had it. I've had where they've got it. Coccidia lives in your dirt, so you can't do anything to treat the soil. You can't do anything to fully prevent it. You don't want to give them amprolium once a month as a preventative measure, because it's very hard on them for absorption of nutrients. So your best option is if you go with the non-medicated feed, and you find that that they've contracted it, which is done through a fecal sample, but the signs are all there. You can kind of tell before you even get a fecal sample done. Then go with the amprolium powder. That's your best bet. So yeah, the medicated feed, nothing special. Electrolytes in their water, we went over that. Any electrolyte will do. There's plenty of different brands out there. Don't get hung up on the brands. Take a look at the back of what's in it, and the more nutrients the better. I use a product by, I think it's Do More. Yeah, Do More, and it's great. It's got everything that's needed for both chicks and adults. I've used it for years. It's been around a long time. Hen, I think it's Happy Healthy Hen has a great one. Purina has one. So again, it's just, don't get hung up on the brands. Just look on the back and make sure that it has all of your B vitamins, K vitamins, and your iron and calcium. So, and you want to put that in, follow the instructions in the water. Like I said, alternating between that and fresh water. And oregano tea. This is actually something that has been super exciting for the past, I'd say 6 or 7 years now. And it was actually Purdue that backed it and funded the research on it, which is fantastic. More research, I should say. Oregano and its natural antibiotic effects. And we believe in that strongly. My family comes from a very long line of raising chickens. And back when it was not, you couldn't just go out and get antibiotics for chickens. You barely could get antibiotics for yourself. So never mind for your chickens. they grew oregano specifically for the chickens. And it's fantastic, and it works really good. It just helps boost in natural immunities and the ability to fight off things. So I highly recommend it. And looking into the more of the herbal options, my avian vet herself, she has taken quite a few courses and recommends a lot of them. So I started researching and started doing some testing, and with our class, and yeah, it's really great. So when I say oregano tea, because they won't eat it when they're that little, I don't know what it is. They just like, ew, no, that's healthy. Forget it, mom. Where's my chocolate, which AKA is mealworms. I brew it just like any other tea, and I put the concentrate in their water. Super easy to do and super fun. I mean, who doesn't want to have tea with their chickens, right? So definitely, keep that. And you can just use oregano that you get at the store. Just steep it. Steep it like you would 2-3 minutes, and wait till it's room temperature and pour it in their water. And do this right through until they're older. I do, Mother Clucker makes a fantastic immune booster tea that is full of, I think 1, 2, 3. We have like 6 different herbals in that. So it's really good to start getting into that. It helps. It really does help. Purdue hasn't used antibiotics with their birds since, and they have one of the greatest success rates. And you think about how many chickens they're using this with. So definitely worth having for your babies for sure. Okay, so any questions? I think we'll do at the end still. We can go to the next one, eviction day. All right. So this can get a little bit more exciting when you have your chicks and you realize how stinky, smelly, dusty, and dirty they are, and that you love them. You love them so much, but you would love it better if they were outside. So eviction day can be very exciting. It's also very nerve-wracking because they are your little babies that you've raised from chicks, and it's a scary move. And it can be a little bumpy. So what to expect when this day comes. Now, you definitely should have your coop ready. You don't want to have a mad panic dash. They need to move out. It's, we're not done. We don't have the coop. So you want to have your coop a few weeks before eviction day with the bedding ready, full-size feeders ready, your different feed. They can get onto a grower feed, or even I start mine on a layer feed before they're laying. That's your personal choice. I do chick feed, grower feed, layer feed. So there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of misconceptions on layer feed starts when they're laying. No, you definitely want to get that started beforehand. They need that calcium boost to help a smooth transition into laying an egg, help them have the best first lay that they can. So to get ready, so have all that ready. Your girls, you don't want to move them out until they're fully feathered. And that is very important because the biggest thing is chickens do not need heat outside. They're actually good to 40 below. I have myself and family, the chickens that we all raised was up in northern Canada. And I think I saw there's a few people actually from that area on today's webinar. So they don't need heat unless it gets down to up there, we're talking -50. So we do have to put heat in at that point. But they are just like any other bird where they trap the heat in under their feathers. The average temperature for poultry is 105 degrees. They're mini furnaces. They're mini furnaces with little down jackets on. So that's a pretty good deal if you ask me, for protecting them from the cold. They do worse in the summer. The chickens have a hard time with the heat. So that is why it's important that they're fully feathered before they move out. They need to be able to fluff and trap that heat. Putting them outside too early, and you will shock them. You will have them. There'll be a lot of problems with temperature if they don't fully feather. That little guy in that picture right there, that's a fully feathered. They almost look like awkward, weird growing teenagers. They look so funny when they're first growing those big girl feathers. So that's about what you want to make sure they've got, those nice, sleek, oily, almost looking feathers. And again, to lead up to that too, when they start getting to that 5-6 week mark, you can start taking them outside for supervised little outside visits, maybe for a half an hour, then bring them back in, kind of get them acclimated to scratching around and the temperature, or not. There's lots of people don't do that. I like it because it's super fun, and it gives me a break, and I can just sit back and watch them. I put them in a little dog crate, and with fresh grass, and they roll around and they fluff and they do all kinds of fun stuff. So fun for the kids too. If you got kids that you're doing this with, it's super fun to bring them out and have them explore a little bit. Helps with the light and everything. It's good for them. So you can do that. The first night, now you want to move them out on a day that you can be home with them, that you can supervise, that you can stay out with them for a little bit. It's going to be scary for them. It's a lot of new noises. They naturally are, again, predator aware. They're just born with it. So they're going to be looking around with all these sounds, all these noises. It's definitely scary for them. But they are, again, super resilient. They're the oldest bird on the planet for a reason. So they'll be okay, but just make sure you do it when you can be home. And it's fun. I mean, get the whole family involved. Everybody go out, everyone go in the run. The last batch that I put out, we opened the dog crate that we carried them out from the inside to outside in, and they literally ran all the way up and just jumped onto my shoulders like, oh, mom, what's up? It's so scary. So it could be super fun and memorable. And then you're going to want to just watch them and then just let them do their thing. And then after dark, you may have to go outside and help them into the coop. Once they learn the coop is where they go to bed, then you're good. Some people secure them inside completely for a week. That's not necessary. You want them to be able to come out and learn coming down the ramp and learn their run, learn their space. Locking them up inside for 24 hours to say, this is your coop, doesn't teach them anything. All it teaches them is that you moved them into a new brooder. So you want them to be able to come in and out during the day. You can lock them up at night. Some people do that. If you have a high predator area, it's a good idea. If you don't have an auto door, you go out and lock it all up. So that's kind of something that leads into even when they're adults, that you want to lock them, secure them completely at night. If you have a great, if you're not too worried about the predators, or you have a great predator protection system, which can be all kinds of things. There's dig aprons, and again, this is also, there's a little bit of this on your packet, is Coop security. So you got your dig aprons. We have a full livestock hot wire system, which is fantastic, and I think it costs maybe $100 for the whole setup, and it covers the entire run and coop. So great investment, and it allows me to have the freedom. I don't have to go out there every night and every morning. I didn't have to buy an expensive auto door. So, which are really great, but I didn't want to have to worry about all of that. And so the electric system is fantastic. The surveillance video of flying raccoons is great, and it doesn't kill anything. We're a no-kill homestead, but definitely sends them flying enough that they're not coming back. So it's up to you, but I recommend not having them stuck in the coop 24 hours a day for 7 days, because that's not going to help you. You want them in and out on their own as soon as you can. But that first night, go out after dark, see if they went in. They probably won't. You're going to have to pick each one up and put them in the coop so that they know. Might have to do it 2-3 nights in a row. Don't panic if that's the case. That's totally normal. So you may have to do that a couple nights to make sure you've got that plan set in place, that somebody will be home, that when the sun goes down, you can go see who. And then it'll be really exciting when you go out there and they're all inside the coop on their own. So sleeping in nesting boxes is super common, because in the brooder, they all huddled together for so many weeks. Very common. Often I will suggest that you block off the nesting boxes until they get closer to laying. Also make sure that your nesting boxes are lower than your roosting bars. So if you've got your chicks, they just moved out and they're all cramming into that nesting box, block it off, and they will figure it out. They'll figure out how to get up on the roost bars and sleep there. And then when they get close to laying age, you can open that back up again. You don't want them dogpiling in there. You can end up with somebody getting, stepped on, hurt, and all that. Plus, it makes a big old mess of the nesting boxes. They're not meant to be slept in. You get the odd one that'll do it here and there, but a whole bunch of them, when they first move in, you don't want that. So if they do that, block it off. It'll save you a lot of trouble. Your feed inside the coop and water outside. You don't want to have water inside the coop at all. There's the exception is the big barn type coops. Any moisture inside your coop is just asking for bacterial problems. In the winter, it's moisture that you don't want. and if they spill, that kind of thing. And it's just water is best left to be hung outside in the run. But the feed can go inside there, and a feed actually inside the coop helps with pests coming, especially at night. So it keeps it dry. You don't want to give moldy feed to a bird, you'll get botulism in them. That's a big problem. So make sure that when you're all set up, the feed's inside the coop. And it also will help entice them to go in the coop, so they'll know. In the first week, I had 2 feeders. So it's a good idea to do that. One in the coop, one outside of the coop, and then slowly move the one out of the coop, or sorry, the one that's in the run out, so that you've only got the one. Because you don't want them to not figure it out in the first week. You got to give them 7 days to acclimate. So you can have some feed in the run as well, but always make sure there's one in the coop so that once they figure that out, they start going in. It just takes one to go in, and they're all going to go in. Okay, so I think that's good for that. So biosecurity. This is actually kind of an interesting topic, because I think a lot of people didn't understand or don't understand or weren't told, or I don't know if biosecurity is not talked about enough. The risk of contracting things, just by going to, say you go to the farm store to pick up more chick feed, you got to make sure that when you come home, before you go and handle your birds and the feeders and stuff, that you wash your hands, sanitizers if you're going in the coop. Don't wear you should have designated coop shoes, or if you do, just a spray bottle outside with some bleach to spray on the bottom of your shoes. It's so easy to bring some pretty nasty respiratory diseases can come from very easy places. So mycoplasma is one, and it lasts on rubber and shoes and tools and everything for up to 5 days. So that's kind of what you want to think in your head. I know that, like the little chickie here with the mask, how appropriate is that for what we've learned? I think the last 2 years kind of showed us already what biosecurity really means, as we've all been drilled: mask, hand sanitizer, wash your hands, don't touch this, don't touch that. So at this point, it's almost going to become second nature, but this will be in a really, really good way. So you want to make sure that you're doing that you're washing your hands before you handle your chicks. Avoid visiting other coops during your brooding stages. So if you have friends that have coops, you're like, oh, I just got my chickens and I want to come over and I want to see what you do. Try to avoid that. If you do, really make sure that you're fully aware of what you're wearing. Don't bring that home. You really don't want to risk that. Things like MG is an absolute 100% young chick loss. They will not survive that. It is very aggressive. It's very difficult for adult hens to survive things like that. They're lifetime carriers, even if they do, and we treat symptomatically, you don't actually cure it. So bringing MG or MS, which is the mycoplasma on both sides, it's just nasty stuff. So you really, really want to make sure that you're fully aware of that, and designating your own coop shoes, coop equipment, that sort of thing. Just because, walking around, now that you're in the world of chickens, you will be surprised how many times you go to the farm store when you suddenly need all kinds of things. So you want to make sure that you're very aware of that. It's super easy to keep a pair of coop shoes, some cheap knockoff Crocs or something that you just keep in a tote right outside the coop, and you swap, and then you go spray the bottom with bleach. It only takes bleach kills on contact for 98% of the different viruses that can come into the coop, which we'll get into that as well. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on right now. So having a bleach bottle is really handy to just spray it in your tools. I mean, we say equipment, that's if you have like a very large setup. If you're cleaning your chicken coop with your garden tools and then going into your garden, you're going to be okay with that, because all of that stuff, the soil in the garden, it's all the same, so you're really not going to do any damage there. It's when you're going to other places. Our biosecurity measures are pretty extreme, but that's because of what we do. We need to make sure, like, we have, you have different sets of equipment. Everything is treated with a commercial antiviral treatment. So you can get that yourself. It's super expensive. but it would probably last you 5 years at the big bucket that you get. So that'll, there's some ideas of different products, but honestly, bleach and water is all you need, and just mix it up. You know, I don't know what the part, I think it's 1 part bleach to water, and works just fine. Always quarantine your new birds. This is a big one, even if you get them from a hatchery, even if you get them from a local hatchery, because this is the #1 way things are transmitted, is by just tossing new birds in. And this is even with your chicks. Okay, so if you have 6 chicks that you got from Tractor Supply, and the hatchery in your town has the breed that you wanted, oh my gosh, they have them available, I need to go get 4, or chicken math means 10, just saying. You want to keep them separate. That is extremely important, because it would be such a shame if these ones got sick or came sick. And I'll tell you, even if it's a trusted, you know, friend of yours, they don't know. You want to get your birds from someplace that's NPIP certified. So that is the National Poultry Improvement Program. I think I said that right. Chelsea might be like, no, Jodi, that's wrong. NPIP certified. So NPIP certified is a monthly check to the locations. Whenever you're purchasing chicks, that's correct. Yay! So it is National Poultry Improvement Program. They're very, very, very important. You can read up on it. It has some fantastic information on what they look for. So an NPIP certified hatchery has a very strict list of things that need to take place. They're tested every month for all the different mycoplasmas. There's a few other, I think, coryza, infectious coryza. There's a few different things that they test for, and they're very accurate. And they also check all of their biosecurity measures, their housing, everything. So even though that is still NPIP certified, you still want to quarantine, maybe not for as much time, but you still want to make sure that you do that, because things can happen. I mean, a lot of people say quarantine 30 days. I most certainly do not do 30 days. You can tell pretty quickly, you know, within 14 days, you're going to see if there's somebody that's sick. And there's a list of symptoms that you're going to look for mycoplasma and such. In the baby chickies, that is not as a high risk, because most hatcheries will incubate and hatch. So these chicks don't have contact with flocks as much as, you know, someone who maybe a friend of yours, or somebody in the town, in the neighborhood, or someone in the community. We do have quite a few people that do hatch and sell chicks, but aren't NPIP certified. They just, you know, it's a popular breed. Like olive eggers are, everybody needs olive eggers. So, or excuse me, the black copper Moran is a really, really dark egg. So you want to quarantine them, even to baby chickies, especially if they're coming from Tractor Supply. Tractor Supply chicks, they can be great, but just remember that it is in a retail setting. So who knows what is coming into that store, sometimes handled all the time by different staff members. And I've walked by where the staff members like, here, check them out. You want these ones? And they'll let customers hold them. But we don't know, did that customer just hold their MG positive flock up there and then come down here to Tractor Supply? So really be aware of that when you're getting your birds. As I promised you, chicken math is a real thing. And do we have a question? Let me know if we do. And any borrowed equipment? I actually have a client just up the road, and anytime she has an emergency, I help her out. And sometimes I have to help her out with things that maybe she doesn't have, and I do. So all my stuff is disinfected with commercial products, again, because of what we do. So I'll take her up. You know, I've probably got 15 different water cans back there, a bunch of different chickie water cans and stuff, and you know, slings for broken legs, things like that. So anything that you borrow or that you got secondhand, because that's a big thing, especially with Facebook now, everybody's selling things. No matter what, even if the person you bought it from or borrowed it from said, oh, I just cleaned it, always take your own initiative, always clean it, again with bleach, let it dry, air dry, and you'd just be better off. It really would be better. So leading into that, Okay. So I don't know if everybody has heard about what's been going on the last few weeks. Excuse me. I hope I'm not talking too fast. I can't see anybody's faces, so. um, so I don't know if anyone's been hearing about this. So the avian flu came back up the east coast of the US. If you're not in the migratory path for the East Coast, like if you're coming in to see us from up in Western Canada, back on the West Coast or Midwest, it's not so much. It's not so much out there. It's mostly this one is hitting the eastern path flyway. So still good to know though. It's called H5N1, and if any of you know, that is yes the same family as the SARS and everything. So avian flu came through, I think it was 1986, and again in 98, and it was bad. It jumped it did a species to species jump, which was us. Woo, yay! So avian flu went over to the human side, and people got very, very sick. This one is not doing that. There is absolutely no cases of it. It's not strong enough. It doesn't have the same pathogenic behavior, which is really, really great. So that is not as much of a worry with this one. This one is also affecting, so here in Maryland, we do have a couple of cases already. The biggest question that I'm getting out of it, so is how is it transmitted, or how is it, oops, sorry. So how is it transmitted? Because there's a lot of weird things going around about how they get it. The fact of the matter is that it is extremely easy for them to get, and the number of ways that that your flock can be infected is growing. Now, it could be from driving down the parking lot, and it comes out of waterfowl and migratory birds like geese. So when they're flying, and it's in their fecal matter. So when they're flying over, and geese don't stop to poop, it just goes. So that is spreading it everywhere because of that, because these migratory birds fly over and drop the fecal matter. It is everywhere. And I know that a lot of the states, their recommendations are to have a full lockdown. Now that means quite a few different things. Poultry houses. Now, when a lot of them, they speak of some of this biosecurity for avian flu, it was meant for the large poultry houses. Yes, all of it can be applied to your birds, but at what extent? So it's a personal preference. You can lock your birds up, meaning you would have to literally keep them in a fully enclosed building. That means walls, roof, everything, that nothing can get in there. That's really not practical for 90% of backyard chicken owners. I've seen people wrapping their coops in plastic, and that's not going to do it, because if you have the little finch birds and stuff, they can still get in. You've really gotta wrap it up. So you have to really take a look at what works best for you and your flock. You look at the red zone, the blue zone. So the red zone being the highest risk. A perfect example. So we have one client who is outside the flyway. So she doesn't live near the water. She's outside the flyway in what the state calls the lower risk zone. She has very few wild birds in her area, on her property, and no waterfowl. So she's not anywhere in that kind of populated area. Now, we have another client, another person who's right on the water, has a very high waterfowl population, and tons and tons and tons of wild birds. That is the red zone. There must be some more precautions taken there. So you really have to take a look at what I get a lot of the, well, what should I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? How do we protect it? So you really want to take it to your personal level. I do not have my birds fully encased. They do have a roof over their run. They do not free range. So that's a perfect option for somebody. If they usually free range, well, a few more weeks, I think it's best that you keep them in the run. If you like, I'm not going to wrap them in plastic, but you might want to. That's not going to be 100% guarantee. As long as you're aware that that doesn't mean, nope, my birds aren't going to get infected, then, you know, you just need to know that. And the other thing, again, that goes back to everything we should be doing anyway: washing your hands, not sharing equipment, or sorry, not borrowing equipment that hasn't been disinfected, your foot wash, even with right now, even with designated Coop shoes, still wash your feet, because your Coop shoes, you can have them in and then you're like, oh, I gotta feed them. Well, you, just like me, I'm busy. And you'll walk from the Coop to where your feed is wearing your Coop shoes, and you could pick it up just like that. So being very, very vigilant on your foot wash right now, that sort of thing, deterring wild birds. So any bird feeders you have around in your property, gone. If you have a pond on your property, that's a really tough one, because you can't stop migratory birds from landing. It's illegal, even in most states, to mess with them in any way. So no free ranging. And the rodents. So it can come in on some rodents. This year, so we got a new report, which is really great. I'm just kind of reading a little bit. I just got it this morning from Penn State. So the one thing we did learn was that the rodents can carry it in. It's not likely, but it's just the way they would do it is just like anything else. Well, they'll run through a bunch of goose poop and come on into your coop to have a little snack of all your feed. A really, really, really successful way of keeping those little buggers out of your feed is cayenne pepper powder and red pepper flakes. Now, that's awesome, because chickens do not have the ability to taste or feel the spice, and those both have actual very great beneficial aspects to it for their metabolic system. So good for them. And all rodents do feel the spice. So it's a double whammy. It's perfect. And we tested it. I had a couple of squirrels. They're eating me out of house and home, I swear. And so I put the, and you don't need much. I just sprinkled it all into the food so it would fall out with the food as it came down. And they went in one time and they haven't been back since. So it is very effective. So I highly recommend that for your feed, to keep those little buggers out. Make sure that and as soon as you forget to do it, and you know, once they learn that it's not there anymore, it's another reason why food should be kept in your coop. I don't know if any of you've seen a full-grown chicken chase and grab and run around with a mouse in its mouth. They will not, they don't care. In there, it's moving, the chicken's gonna get it. So being inside the coop is a good deterrent as well. That, and again, with your feed cans and all of that, should also be kept inside, especially with this flu. It's just anything that because you're going to touch it a lot. And when you're busy and you're doing all of the, all your coop chores, you don't want to have to wash your hands and wash your hands and wash your hands and wash your hands and spray your boots all the time. So try and find a way to make it super close to where your coop is and accessible that way. Predator or keeping the mice and stuff, lockdown totes, that kind of thing. So that's, and then the last question I get with this is, when is this going to be over? How long do we have to keep everybody on lockdown for? Good news, it will be over when the migration ends. So I mean, we're, I think, just a few weeks out from that. End of April, that's when it ends. You're going to see a dramatic decline in cases. It's also important to note that the H5N1 has primarily been affecting a lot of turkeys. So that they're one of the most highly susceptible to this virus. I think the one that we have, one of the big ones in Maryland, was a turkey farm that had to be depopulated. So it's hang on tight. It's almost over. And when it's over, we can all go back to normal. Just make sure and follow your state websites for updates. Sometimes their updates are super vague, and the phone numbers to call can be very time consuming. So just be patient. And if you do find somebody in your flock that has the symptoms, it's really important to take a community stand on that and know that you might have to depopulate your flock if it is H5N1, avian flu. That doing so is very sad, but it protects your future flocks and everybody around you. And that's the only way that we can actually make sure that everybody's safe, is if we do our due diligence and we do report if we have it. The state comes, they don't have any questions. They just send a team out and depopulate. I mean, I'm sure you guys can figure out what that means. And it's sad that it would have to happen that way, but it's just part of one of those conversations that everyone needs to have with themselves, and to know that they're not going to get better. It's a 100% fatality rate. So there's nothing you can do for them if your flock does come down with it. And they'll come and they'll test for free and everything too. And if it's not H5N1, it's not avian flu, they just tell you, no, it's not. They're not going to test for anything else. It's up to you to do that. They're just coming to test for the avian flu. So just have that in the back of your mind that if you see symptoms, report it right away. And there is no cure for it. So best thing you can do is just practice your biosecurity the way that you should always be doing it. And just watch the state for when the migratory path, or sorry, we'll call it a flyway is what we call it. It's like the highway for the birds, the flyway. When that is over, this will be gone. It's not here to stay. So just really, really pay attention to that, and just hang in there. It's not too much longer as soon as it's done. So I think we can go to some questions if we have anybody. I hope I didn't talk too fast.
You did great, Jodi.
Okay.
So just for everyone who's participating online today, so if you want to go ahead and submit any questions in the Q&A, you should see a little Q&A button. And there is one question that was submitted. So what will, obviously besides mother cluckers and backyard chicken caucus, of course, but what other sites or information or books do you recommend?
Awesome. That's a very good question. Fresh Eggs Daily. Lisa, she is fantastic. I highly recommend following her website, her blog. She's written, I think, 3 or 4 books now. So it's Fresh Eggs Daily. And yeah, she takes a very, what I call a non-biased approach to everything. She is not brand driven. There's a few out there that have kind of gone a little by the wayside and are very brand driven, and she's not. She's also very, she's been around a long time. I think her family generation goes back, I think 3 or 4 generations. So she is fantastic, and I highly recommend any one of her books. She's got a really good one actually that I just finished reading, and it was on nutrients. And she's got a whole beautiful chart of herbal things that are really good for your chickens, different nutrients. She actually makes her own feed, so she's got a recipe for how to do that if you're into that. So she's a really good resource, definitely. Fresh Eggs Daily.
Awesome. That's awesome information. We just got some more questions in. So question about integrating new pullets into an already established flock. How do we do it?
Oh, yes, I actually missed talking about that. So very good question. So integrating pullets, and this is actually for any age. So whether you have, I mean, okay, 1-week-old chicks, you kind of just in they go. They haven't quite figured out what a pecking order means yet, so you're okay there. When you get into the pullet stage, so this is when they're fully feathered and outside. They're not adults yet, but they just moved out. You want to have your new girls, and you should always try to integrate more than just one. They need a buddy. They need at least one other buddy so that they can kind of, when you first started school, brand new school, didn't know anyone, it was so much better if you had a friend that was with you. So it's the same idea. So what you want to make sure and do is the new chickens that you're getting after a quarantine phase, of course, you want to have them in a dog crate or something where they can all see each other, but not get to each other, and be safe, and kind of start to hear those coos and those little pecks and peeps and sounds. And that's them actually communicating and talking and saying like, hey, what are you doing here? So having them in that space, and you're going to want to do that for a couple of days. So in the run, you want to have them in a crate, in a cage with water and food, of course, and let everyone just mingle about. And the best thing to do is find one that will fit in your coop too. So at night, you're going to move them into your coop so that they all go to bed together, but safely in that crate. and move them out. And then you're going to open up the gate and you're going to let them out, I'd say about on the third day. You can either do it at night so that they all roost together. But I've tried that a couple of different times and it worked. And one time they pecked each other all night long. So, I prefer to do it where I can actually watch the behavior. But you can, it's not for time. I've had it work before, putting them in at night after they've seen each other for a week in a safe situation. Just remember that pecking is completely normal. A little fighting might be normal because you've just interrupted the pecking order. So they have to reestablish that. What you want to watch for though is aggressive pecking, where they gang up on one chicken. You might even see a little bit of blood here and there if they're pecking at, just know that it looks worse than it is. And that's part of them reestablishing the pecking order. It's a reason why I like to integrate during the day, especially in the morning where I could spend some time and just monitor everybody, just so we don't, because it can happen really fast if they get pecking. So do it that way. And then just, and if you see some crazy aggressive pecking, start over again. And instead, if there's a bully and you can identify the bully, then you're going to pen the bully. Like if you got one bird that keeps beating the heck out of them, put her in timeout. I call it bully timeout. And that works really good because what it does is it knocks her down the ladder on the pecking order a bit and it straightens them up pretty quick. So that's the stage you want to do. So I'd go, 3 to 4 days of them inside a crate with everyone around, move the crate inside. As soon as you remove them from the situation, you've started all over again. So if you take them away at night and now they don't see each other for the 12 hours sleeping or 10, whatever it is that they're sleeping, and you bring them back, you've started from day one. So you want to make sure that it's 24 hours that they can see each other, and it works so much smoother than trying to just in and out. And plus it's easier on you. All you got to do is put them in there. So yeah, you want to make sure and keep them seeing each other. And for the most part, you don't panic when you see the pecking, they'll be fine. Let them peck each other, a little fight here and there. They're super dramatic animals, we all know that. So don't worry about a little bit of pecking. If you do have any, if you do this, and whoever asked the question, if you do this and it's not working or you're having a hard time with it, don't hesitate to message us on our page. We definitely do some really great guidance for that. So, there's a lot of things you can send us pictures and stuff where I can help say, oh, that's a little too aggressive, or no, you know what, it's okay. I know it's nerve-wracking, but don't worry about it. So yeah, if you do that and you're nervous about it, you can just shoot us a message too, and we'll definitely help guide through some more. Perfect. Hope that answers.
Absolutely. I am definitely, right. The pecking order is real for sure. And yes. I'm definitely team playpen method, and exactly that. Yes. Slow introduction for sure. Yes. All right. So I think we have time for one more question. All right. So for predator security, I was told to secure hardware cloth to my Coop and run. Do you agree? And what size? 1/2 inch, 19 gauge, or 1/4 inch, 23 gauge?
I think you want the smaller one. I will say that hardware cloth versus chicken wire has been quite it's the battle of which is better. Yes, hardware cloth is stronger, but that makes no difference if you have a raccoon literally pulling it off. They can still pull it off. Foxes can still dig under it. So you can do the hardware cloth for sure. It can be very expensive, and you want to do the smaller one. I believe that is the 1/4 inch, I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the smaller one anyways, because raccoons will actually reach through fencing, which is really nasty. Raccoons are one of poultry's biggest predators. They kill for fun, they massacre, it's terrible stuff. So you want to think about them when you're doing this. A lot of people will say hardware cloth because of raccoon. I use chicken wire for my fox dig because it doesn't need to be strong. The second they dig and hit that chicken wire that's an apron, they're gone. I live harmoniously. We just counted last night. I have 8 foxes living right here on my property, and I have no problems with them whatsoever. Raccoons, on the other hand, I've had to electrify because they were relentless. I had hardware cloth, they peeled it back. I used screws, they figured out how to chew through wood. So we've swapped out. My second coop is all chicken wire, no hardware cloth, because the price was astronomical during just after COVID. So we went with chicken wire, and I have no problems with it, but I electrified. So the cost of electrifying versus covering everything in hardware cloth, I could probably have bought 5 or 6 electric setups with the amount it was going to cost for hardware cloth. So it's not you have to, it's what do you want to do for yourself, for your own protection. If you have a lot of raccoons, I highly recommend just doing chicken wire and invest in the electric system. You're still saving money. And if you do hardware cloth, then yes, go with the smaller ones so those little buggers can't fit their little hands with thumbs through the holes. And make sure you put your apron down as well. Must put a dig apron down.
Perfect. Yeah. Absolutely. Definitely
predator. I hope that answers your question.
I think it did. I think it did.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I'd love for you to just kind of, I'll hand it back over to you a little bit more, just to some of the different services that you offer. Go ahead, take it away.
Okay. So we do the deep cleaning, of course. Oh, you're welcome. We do the deep cleans. Now, the deep cleans are really awesome. It's not something that we say like, oh, you must have us come all the time, but we recommend having somebody like us come at least once a year, because we do all sorts of things for that deep cleaning. That's like our biggest part of the company. And it's pest control. We do that as well. But with the deep clean, we check for pests. It's called a sticky test. So I get into every crack and crevice with this special little awesome glue strip, and I pull it out, and I've been trained to identify eggs laid by mites, all kinds of things. So it's really great because I can tell you if you have a problem coming now or you're good. So the deep clean goes that, plus we use a blower system to blow out all that dander we talked about earlier. Our tests now our deep cleans now come with complimentary fecal collection. And that's just for worms and coccidia. That will get upgraded as my education keeps going. But right now, my lab, I'm doing worms and coccidia, so which is the most common stuff. Yeah, pest treatment. That's if you have lice or mites in your coop, and it can be super overwhelming. And we've had clients like, oh my gosh, I've treated 6 times. We come, we teach you what we're doing at the same time as doing it, so that if it happens again, you don't go through all that stress. So if you've got, if you're facing that right now, give us a call. We do all kinds of stuff, and it's all really good, safe products that we use. Poultry, everything we do is poultry approved products. So we don't use bleaches that are inside the coop and all of that. So predator assessments and upgrades. This is a big one that we do. Usually after someone's lost a flock, they call us to come in and fix what happened. So if you book us for a deep clean, we do all that for free as well when we're there. Repairs, modifications, we do shed outfitting. So if you buy a cool shed, we come and we build it all up for you. The first time flockers class, super fun. For those of you who are here in Maryland, at least, I come to you. It's really fun for the whole family. I bring all kinds of cool stuff with me, booklets and pictures and diagrams and little egg things that have babies growing in them, and it's super fun. So it's really hands-on, and we do it when you get your chicks so we can practice safe holding and everything. So that's really fun. Yeah, and then our products, which we're rolling out a whole new scratch grading product. I know some of you have tried it. With recent stuff, we've lost some supply chains. So it made it a little hard, like with the trucker thing, and a whole bunch of stuff was happening, and we couldn't get any shipments in, but they're coming back out now. We're all good now. So they'll be out in a couple of weeks. And then we do emergency guidance video chat. That's a big one. I've done 9 o'clock at night. Something happens, something got in the coop. What do I do? And we do video chat with that. So you can't always take your chickens, to the vet, especially at 9 o'clock at night, but there's so much that you can actually do for them right at home. It's amazing what we can do just right at home. So yeah, building up your first aid kit, and then you can call us and I go through it with you, and with video, I can see what's going on, and I can let you know, how to fix her up, or how to get her at least till the morning, and if she needs a vet or doesn't, or, yeah. So that's what we do right now.
Awesome. I think I can already see several things that I might expect a phone call soon. So.
Perfect.
Appreciate it. All right. Well, I just want to say thank you again to Jodi for being our first guest speaker of our From the Coop webinar series. And thank you to everyone for joining in. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at backyardchickencaucus.com. And also please follow Jodi as well at Mother Clucker's Mobile Chicken Coop Wellness and Spa.
Thank you.
So yes, thank you everyone and good night.
Bye guys. Thank you. Yay.